All right, hi. We are going to go over some significant figures here. I'm going to talk about the sentences that we see, or rather the paragraphs that we see, and I will make space and show you how we can easily add, subtract, divide, and multiply to get our significant figures. So our instructions here are to perform the following calculations, paying attention to significant figures, round our answers to the appropriate number of significant figures, write down the rules that we applied to determine the significant figures in each calculation. So let's make space for our first problem here. Our first problem is indicative of, zooming in here, 5.74 plus 3.12. My explanation for this is that when we are adding or subtracting numbers, the answer should be rounded to the least number of decimal places amongst the given values. In this case, both numbers have two decimal places, so the answer should also have two decimal places. Therefore, the answer is 8.86, and we're going to round to the two significant figures. As we can see here, if we take 5.74 plus 3.12, it does indeed equal 8.86. What we need to look for here is the 0.12 and the 0.74. The tens place is the 7, the hundreds place is the 4, the tens place is the 1, the hundreds place is the 2. And as you can see, it does indeed satisfy the smallest significant figure in our decimal place. More questions to come here to help you understand. This is a subtraction problem. So we have 7.835 minus 2.1 equals, and we will find the explanation here is that subtraction is similar to addition. And the answer should have the same number of decimal places as the value with the least number of decimal places or significant figures. In this case, the second value has one decimal place. Therefore, the answer is 5.7. So we will see what we actually produce. We get 7.835 minus 2.1, and that actually produces 5.735. But because we, in our question, have a 2.1, well, the ones place is the least digit, or it has the least amount of significant figures. So we're going to take that into account. Thus, the answer is indeed 5.7. Okay. Number 3. We have 6.5 times 2.8. Our explanation here is when multiplying or dividing numbers, the answer should have the same number of significant figures as the value with the fewest significant figures. The first value has 3 significant figures as 6.51 that we can see here. And while the second value has 2 significant figures, therefore the answer should have 2 significant figures. Thus the answer is 18. And we can double check to see what that is. 6.51 multiplied by 2.8, that equals 18.228. However, we have 2 significant figures here, the 2.8, and you may be thinking, well, it's 2.8. There has to be something in the ones place. Nope, that was the rule set for subtraction and addition. Multiplication, it just takes what is the least amount, and that should be in your final answer. So we erase all the rest of these trailing numbers here, and it's just 18. That is our significant figure because it matches our least significant, which is 2 for 2.8. Moving on. Let's look at number 4 here. So we have 9.62. 9.62 divided by 4.5. Our explanation here is that division follows the same rule as multiplication. Okay, the answer should have the same number of significant figures as the value with the fewest significant figures. Both values in this calculation have 3 significant figures. That's a lie. Okay, 4.5 is clearly 2. So this is a lie. I will delete that. Boom. Okay, therefore the answer is 2.1, which is funny because it said it had 3 as the lowest. So it rounded to 2 significant figures. So let's do this 9.62, and I could just copy and paste, but this is more fun. 9.62 divided by 4.5, we get 2.137. Well, that is far more than two significant figures. So actually, we're going to go ahead and do that. 2.1. Done. Okay, moving on. Gonna get that out of our way. Okay, now we have a parentheses 4.52 plus 0.2 times 1.6. Okay, we're getting a little more, so we're in the more intermediate range here. Explanation, the addition inside the parentheses has three significant figures, but the multiplication by 1.6 introduces a new value with two significant figures. Therefore, the answer should have two significant figures. Thus, the answer is 8. So we can actually type this out. 4.52 plus 0.2, our order of operations states that, and I think I could just put 1.6 there, but our order of operations, and we round it up here, states that we add and then we can multiply within that addition. And you could, multiply first, but the multiplication needs to occur first. We multiply, then divide. So the computer did that for us, and we get 7.552. Well, when we round up, you will notice because we have two significant figures, I erased the 2 as I saw there. Well, that 5, because it's 5, if it was lower than 5, we would actually go to 7.0. But because it's 5.5, that's going to round us up, and so that's going to be 8.0, and we're done. Okay, number 6. 5.62 times 3.09 plus 2.123, a little more intermediate. Our explanation here is the multiplication and addition should be treated separately. The multiplication has three significant figures, while the addition introduces a new value with four significant figures. Therefore, the answer should have three significant figures. Thus, the answer is 19. Well, that doesn't make much sense. So, therefore, the answer should have three significant figures. So, I love this because we can figure out why it's 19. Okay, maybe it actually is. Maybe it rounded down to 0. So we will see here. So 5.62 times, our order of operations states that this should occur first, and then we are going to add 2.123. We get 19.48. Well, indeed, this is incorrect. Our multiplication has three significant figures, so that 8 is going to round up that 4 to a 5. Okay, so it was 4, 8, and we needed only three significant figures. That 9.4 is three significant figures. So 19.5 because we round up that 8. Okay, nice. Number 7. Okay, some crazy stuff going on here. 23.56 times 0.021 divided by 4.2. Our explanation here, the multiplication and division should be considered separate. The multiplication has four significant figures. Okay, well, the 23.56, while the division introduces a new value of two significant figures. Therefore, the answer should have two significant figures. So if you're kind of catching the drift here, we are noticing that multiplication and division takes control over addition and subtraction. So I got a completely different answer here. So what I want to do is put this first piece into parentheses. So I'm kind of showing you this piece as well. Oh, wow. This is interesting. So we multiply, did I do the correct 23.56 times 0.021 divided by 4.2? There's no way if I do that in parentheses too, we get the same answer. How funny is that? So the answer is incorrect on that one, but we are looking for two significant figures. The 0.1178, the 7 is in the third significant figure, and that rounds this up to a 2. So we get a 0.12. Okay, almost done. Look at this. So we have a 10.2 minus 3.981 plus 1.24. Our explanation here is addition and subtraction should be treated separately. The subtraction and addition in this calculation have four significant figures. Okay, well, the 3.981 does. Therefore, the answer should also have four significant figures. Okay, because we are dealing with addition and subtraction here. So let's look at typing this answer out and seeing what we get. So we get 10.2 minus 3.981 plus 1.24, and we get 7.459, and that is indeed correct. Okay. So again, we are looking at the decimal places and the significant figures in those decimal places. We have to account for all of them in subtraction and addition. Okay. Let's look at this problem here. It looks like we got a difficult one coming up here. Okay, we have 8.52 divided by 2.41 times 0.015. Okay, the division should be performed first, followed by the multiplication. The division introduces a new value with 3 significant figures, while the multiplication has 2 significant figures. Therefore, the answer should have 2 significant figures. Thus, the answer is 0.058, rounded to 3 significant figures. Okay, so what we are doing here is we, in fact, want to account for everything here. So let's actually do this problem. 8.52 divided by parentheses 2.41 times 0.015, and that's going to equal. So this is funny. This is funny because if the division does indeed get performed first, if we wrote this out, what's boggling in my head here is that we have 8.52, right? And then we take 2.41 times 0.015. And so it needs to be divided by that entire thing. So I'm genuinely confused why our answer would be 0.058. So I'm going to go with my answer here. I might be incredibly wrong. But anyway, if we're looking at the least amount of significant figures here, we're looking at 2. Okay, because this is a trailing 0. We don't account for that trailing 0. If there were a 0 after this 5, we would account for that, but this is insignificant. Okay, so we are going to state that this is indeed 2 significant figures, so we can actually round up this to a 4 and be done. Okay, moving forward. Okay, this looks like a toughie. 5.7 times 10 to the third plus 6.22 times 10 to the second minus 3.481 times 10. Explanation: when working with numbers in scientific notation, the significant figures rule applies to the coefficient. In this case, the first value has 2 significant figures. Okay. The second value has 3 significant figures, and the third value has 4. Therefore, the answer should have 2 significant figures. Okay, so it gave us an answer here, and of course, it has 3 significant figures. So we can actually type this out, and in fact, I am going to copy and paste this because this might be a little faster. So I'm going to copy and paste this and do the correct. I don't know if X accounts for multiplication in this or not. And we are going to type equals. Okay, so I get an entirely different answer here. So I'm going to look at this as it is 6.8 or 6.3. So what I'm doing is I'm going to show that this would be technically 6.287 to the third, because it would be 1, 2, 3 decimal places to that 6. So if I erase all of this, put 0.3, because it was a 0.28, but I'm going to put a 0.3 for 2 times 10 caret 3. Caret means to the third power. Okay, so 6.3 times 10 to the third power. So I am not sure where they got this. Perhaps if I used a TI-84 calculator, I might get that same answer, but I'm going to stick with this. It's just what got popped out from here, and perhaps the program I'm using is popping out different formulas. Well, if I got those incorrect, hopefully you can correct me there, but hopefully getting some rule sets down. I hope you have a good day.